Welcome to Rev Up Your Leadership with Hilda Gann, the podcast for forward thinking, proactive leaders who believe in a people centric approach to business. Whether you're an executive, a seasoned manager, business owner, or a novice manager, this show is for those who know that putting people first drives real, lasting success. Each episode, I sit down with passionate guests, leaders who share real world experiences, proven frameworks, and insights from their industries. Together, we explore what it takes to lead with impact, stay ahead of the curve, and build thriving, future ready organizations. If you're ready to lead with purpose, inspire your team, and think strategically, it's time to rev up your leadership and rev up your success. Welcome to another episode of Rev Up Your Leadership. We're going to be talking about technology, high-tech, high-touch leadership, unlocking human potential through transformation. Today, my guest is Shveta Malhan. She is a people and transformation leader with over 20 years of experience helping organizations unlock human potential through better leadership, learning, and talent practices. As managing partner and co-founder of Yenza 3, she works with leaders to thoughtfully integrate AI into people systems, enabling personalized learning, internal mobility, and continuous performance without losing judgment, trust, or human connection. Shweta is known for translating emerging technologies into practical, people-centered transformation that actually works in the real world. So today we're combining AI and human connection. And that's, I think, the key to the next short bit as we navigate through the AI changes that are happening today.
Thank you for
Welcome,
having me.
Shweta.
Thank you so much for having me on your podcast, Hilda.
Well, we've been talking a bit, and I'm so excited because to me, we as human resource professionals need to think about how is this all impacting. And so many people are looking at the change and the fear this change is going to bring to us. So I'm so excited about what we're going to share today.
Yeah, likewise. It's a very interesting and evolving space. In many
Yeah.
ways, unprecedented too. So, very exciting to have this conversation with you.
It's so interesting over the decades how change continues to happen and happen faster and faster, and the turnover is so quick. And even the change in AI technology from like a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, and yes, even 10 years ago, because AI was around in 10 years ago, but people don't know that it was AI in its very, very early stages.
Absolutely. In fact, sometimes I use this phrase or I borrow from the movie title Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Yes,
That's the kind of change that we are witnessing with AI this time around. It's truly unprecedented.
I like how you use that title because all of a sudden my mind is going back to the film, seeing the multiple faces all twisting and turning and going askew and things. And I know in preparation for this, we asked this question, like, why many people in leadership transformation efforts seem to get stalled in the past. Do you want to talk about that first, maybe?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have been in the transformation space for about 2 decades now. And what I've noticed, Hilda, from my lived experiences is that it's not the lack of intention that caused stickiness or friction in transformation agendas for organizations. I think it was limited capacity in many ways from technology front also that helped leaders get stuck with transformation. And sometimes I even start with the definition of transformation. Are we all aligned when we think about transformation in an organizational context? Because sometimes we confuse incremental improvements with transformation. We might be expecting the results of a transformative effort, but applying incremental improvements in organizational context. So there's a disconnect there between our vision and what we actually embark on as a journey for change. And I think that the reason for that sometimes is that we do not have, or we did not have, now the game is changing very, very rapidly in that area. But in the past, we did not have enough sense making capability as a leadership team. Like, one, where should we transform? How should we transform? And is our organization ready for undertaking that transformative journey? Because transformation doesn't happen in snap of a finger. It's truly playing the long game. Is our ecosystem, organizational culture, our people, are we ready to embark on that journey? That sense making capability is where many times our transformative efforts in the past have lagged, because we don't understand, we don't have. It's like looking at the elephant. Like, the CEO is looking at the elephant from their vantage point, the CTO is looking at it from their vantage point, COO, and then the HR leadership. Everybody is looking at the giant transformation elephant, but they're not able to connect the dots to see that it is actually an elephant that they are transforming, not the tail or the trunk or the legs. So
Yes, and it is
that's
that
what I call
collaborative.
sense making infrastructure, lack of it.
And I love how you sort of say it isn't so much the transformation itself, it's, you said sense making. So it make sense? And then to see it from, yes, all the different angles, but then to come and get consensus building on what
Yeah.
is that collective angle, or yes, what is the total piece? And then each of us definitely has a different lens to implement, but in implementing, it can create a better whole. And so I know myself, I'm doing a not for profit project that will transform the digital world for the nonprofit sector, because they're laggers. Let's face it, people in industries like healthcare and not for profits, they don't have the funding dollars that corporate industries can do. So they are lagging in technology, and they've always have. So what we're trying to do is uplift that to create a comfort level.
Mhm.
And much of the training program is the transformation aspects. It's assessing what it is, assessing resilience, assessing readiness. And
Yeah.
it is, as you say, it's the planning stage of change. And change has been going on for, forever. And so in any transformation, it is about change, and people need to understand the whole process of that.
Yep. Absolutely.
But
Absolutely.
you're excited because you said now we also have the AI that can make it happen easier,
It,
because it
it
wasn't before. Do you want to talk about that a bit more?
Absolutely, and it totally can, because for the longest time, even if you look at it from the lens of people in the transformation equation and how much do we actually know about our people, for the longest time, this is pre AI or pre Gen AI era. I used to sit in organizational contexts and I used to wonder, how come we know more about our customers than our internal employees? Why don't we understand what are they doing, how are they thinking, like what the whole think feel do know, like what are they thinking at this moment, how are they feeling, what are they doing, what are the friction points and barriers in their employee experience related to the work. We did not have a solid grasp of the sentiment of our employees, and if we don't know enough about our employees, how are we going to tailor our change and adoption strategies to bring them along in the transformation journey, or even define what that transformation is? Because again, everybody is looking at the transformation from their vantage point. So, but AI changes the game in this situation, because now we can really truly mine the people data to an extensive level. And I'm not just saying data like let's run a survey, engagement survey, and collect that data. Now with AI, we can do a better, stronger sense making to connect one disparate siloed data, which might sit in different databases in an organization, but also look at the digital footprint of employees. Again, we have to be very transparent when we are getting into the digital exhaust of employees in the work context. But once we have the permission to play in that sandbox, imagine the power of connected data story that we can start creating and drawing insights from them, not just around who is in my organization, where do they sit in my organization, but also look at what do they aspire to do, how are they working,
Mhm.
doing when they're working on projects, what outcomes they are achieving, which person is connected to who in the organization. A human brain or a collective of human brains as team members can only take this insight, story, or sense making to a certain degree. But AI is something that is just sitting there working 24 by 7, crunching numbers, connecting the dots, drawing, creating new patterns, and telling stories. So you have something that can really, truly, I'm not saying make the decisions on behalf of you, but give you that those insights that can help you make better decisions and choices when you're embarking on a transformation journey.
So for some people listening, they'll go, "What?" Like some people never even think about their employees beyond the what are they doing, because I have a deadline, they need to be doing what I'm
Yeah.
doing. And I know when my husband and I had iTrans, we did that. Like, well, we were in AI, but we had the human touch side of knowing what people are doing, but what do they aspire to? What opportunities can I be doing to help them reach that stretch goal that they have in mind 2 to 3 years from now? And I know they're capable of doing that. So I'm going to give them these stretch opportunities so that when they have that goal in mind, it's been achievable through those small steps. And what beauty is that AI can capture that and look at it objectively and in that mass. Because
Yeah.
there's no expert leader who can take a team of 20 and know everything about them all the time and think, wow, this person's going to be good for this aspect of this project. This person's going to be good for this. This is going to be
Yeah.
the leader because they get the big picture. And
Yeah.
having an AI that does that, and having an AI where you can dialogue to ask those kinds of questions that you might have to wait 2 days for somebody to get back to you because they're at a
Yeah.
meeting and they won't be able to get back to it. So using AI almost as a support advisor, not a support system, but an advisor, an intelligent advisor, because the more you feed it, the more you in turn get back. And I think this is where people get scared. They think AI is going to take over the world and we're going to be out of a job. So I want you and your wisdom and vast experience to help people come to terms with this big elephant.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the fear is very, very understood. Yeah, there is fear because there's a lot of uncertainty. This time around, I feel like most traditional changes that we've embarked on as organization, whether it was implementing an ERP system or going from on-prem to cloud, though all those changes had a predefined end state. It was like, here's a piece of land I have. Here are the specs of the house that I want to build. Here's a prefab house. Can you just build it on that piece of land? That's the kind of change that we were dealing with in the past. But this time around, we don't have an end state for AI defined yet. It is changing by the minute, like by the second sometimes. Like every time you blink, there's a new news about AI or there's new capability that's launched in the tools, productivity tools that we use on a daily basis. So I can understand why there is so much fear associated with it. And I also feel like this time around, it's really hard to train people on generative AI the way we see Gen AI in our work context. Because in the past, there was a user experience, there was a user interface layer. Like if you had salesforce.com, there was a process behind it. We taught new process, and then we would say, this is what the buttons on the screen will look like. This is where they're placed. You click this button, and this is the outcome that you will be able to achieve. So it was very easy to train on the process and the technology. But how do you train somebody on intelligence? Because this is AI is not just a tool, it is an intelligence that we are dealing with. It's like that knife. which knows how to use itself. That's what AI is all about. It's not just a static knife that is in our hands and we know how to use it. It's a knife that knows how to use itself. So training on it is very difficult. And this is why I feel being hands on, one, leveraging this technology is going to be super, super advantageous for anybody who is feeling the fear, because the fear stems from not knowing what to do with it. But if we start integrating AI slowly, and this is the first time in human history, I think a tool or technology as powerful as AI has been given to us at what's the cost? There are free versions of every single AI, generative AI tool that's out there. So nothing is stopping us from testing it out and bringing it into our lives as a co-intelligence that exists with us. That's one. Two, I would say business problems. So I love the example that you used there about internal mobility and, a leader looking at their team members and understanding the human aspect and then saying that, oh, this person is really good at this. Let me move them into this role so that they can grow their capability in next particular area, given their interests and aspirations. But this is where, again, I have a lived example that I'd love to share with you and your audience where AI truly helped us scale that beyond us doing it manually. I'm not saying that the human to human touch was not the right way to go, but then human to human connection also doesn't scale and also depends on the leader and how invested they are in their people. But this is where, in one of my gigs that I did with an organization, where we found out that for them, talent discovery was a big pain point. They are a professional services organization, and every time they had to pitch a new piece of work to clients, they could only look at their talent through the lens of an org chart. An org chart, you and I both know, tells you the bare minimum about
Yeah.
the individual's capabilities. Beyond their current role, you really truly don't know what this person brings to the table from all their 20 plus years, 5 plus years of lived work experience. So we actually leveraged AI, parsed the skills of all employees in the organization, worked with the technology team, and built an internal talent marketplace, which had a recommendation engine. The employee would go in and say, "Hey, I'm in point B in my A in my career. What new points can I easily go to? Like, if I have to go to point B, what are the learning and experience gaps I have to close? Should I be shadowing somewhere? Should I look for a mentor?" So it empowered people to think about their work beyond their current job title in an organization. So it solved for employees, but it was such a powerful solve for the business leaders assembling those pitch teams for the clients, because now they didn't have to talk to 10 other leaders to say, hey, do you have somebody who's worked with, so and so client and in so and so role? The system, they could just enter the specs of the skills or the experiences they were looking for, and they had a list of 5 6 people on their screen. They knew who they need to go and talk to. So it shrunk the talent discovery time from like 3 to 6 weeks to 3 to 4 days. That's the power
Exactly.
of tool. But the decision is still made by the human. AI is
Yeah.
not making the decision, but it's facilitating this decision making.
I mean, people need to get comfortable with the fact that you may reach a similar conclusion, but it could take you 4 to 6 weeks to find out what, if you had the information quickly, and this is an objective viewpoint of who those people are, and now you're narrowing your search with these people and finding even better talent faster.
Yeah.
So I think people need to get comfortable with the fact that this really is an enabler. And for those who don't understand what generative AI means, is it's changing all the time. It's generating new information, new ways of doing things. That's what generative means. And so it's really escalated AI. And and when I talked about AI, Grammarly is AI.
Yeah.
A spell checker is AI, but now we're talking generative AI. And and so many people are afraid. And I liken it to the .com company, where the .com era, when people were learning about computers in a way that was not thought of even before. And some people are early adopters and they embrace change, and then there are the laggards, the late adopters, and they wait till it's like it's entrenched. But here we've learned lessons of being adopting early. I'm not saying don't be the early adopters, because you're already too late. Like that happened 3 years ago. If you didn't start AI back at least 3 to 5 years ago, then this is not early adoption. This is.
Yeah.
But if we all start now, a little bit at a time, we're going to get more and more comfortable. And it is moving at the speed of light, so that if you don't start now, you are going to fall so much further and further behind, and not in the months, almost in days kind
Yeah.
of thing. My husband has not been using ChatGPT too much. He loves to Google and get search things. And we were planning these vacations, and we said, you should go to ChatGPT. We went to Morocco in the summer at Christmas time, and my daughter and I wanted to try the hummus. We looked at it last time, but we didn't want to try it because it just didn't seem comfortable. But I thought, okay, I'm going to go to ChatGPT. I logged in where we were staying, and they came up with each location, which place might be good for us, given what we like, where we're geographically located, what the hours were, what the cost was, like in like 10 minutes. And then I
Yeah.
had this dialogue and I narrowed it down. Okay, we're going to probably try to go to this place, this place. But I knew so much more in a fraction of the time. And so I told my husband, you should go in and check ChatGPT. So now he's on there, like,
Yeah.
and so he suddenly realized the value of it. And so
Yeah.
I encourage people, just try a little bit. Start with something personal, not too personal, and then you'll be amazed at, wow, they found that out so quickly. Let me just ask another question, and before you know it, you gain more and more comfort, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And it does end up becoming like your digital personal assistant in many ways. Like I've been using my version of ChatGPT now for like 3 years, ever since it first came out. And I can even interact with it and ask it questions like, oh, so how do you assess my personality based on our interaction so far? And it's so interesting and fascinating how much it actually interprets uh, and a user's personality based on usage and
Yeah,
questions and
yeah,
whatnot.
yeah.
So you don't have to recontextualize it every single time. So now when I ask questions, my prompts are not like 5 paragraph long prompts. It's like just one statement and it gets where I'm coming from because it's been trained on my usage of the GPT version for like last 3 years. So it's
And
become
it's
like an indispensable asset for me.
and you summed it up so nicely, because I I got a summary of my LinkedIn. How did I use it this year? I thought, okay, that's interesting. And then ChatGPT said a year in with
Yeah.
ChatGPT. Not only did they talk about last year, but they said you started in September of 2003 or 2023. So I too was, quote, an early adopter. And at first I used it like Google, glorified
Yeah.
Google. What is this? What is that? Then they said I became interactive, and now I'm using it as that advisor. And I have put in those prompts before, and sometimes I have to remind them, remember, you're the senior editor of the New York Times. You're not a new grad that just is giving me copy here. Oh,
Yeah.
right. I am your senior advisor. So I get a much better product when you prompt things. But as you go along, that's like, yes, and I remember I'm a senior editor for the New York Times. So prompts are so important if you want to maximize your use of
Yeah.
interaction. Ask it questions, but generatively, it's learning and learning how to connect with you at a level that's more and more supportive of what you're requesting.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, one day I was just like so tired of. So there's a deep research feature in every tool. Like you can go to Chat GPT, they have deep research. So does Gemini. And I so does Grok. Like they mirror the functionality quite closely. So you can just pick one generative AI tool, and you'll be able to use all of them. And use GPT a lot for doing market research or understanding trends and whatnot. But then one day I was like, I'm just so tired of writing this long prompt for you to do deep research. Hey, Chat GPT, here's the outcome that I'm looking for in my research. Can you write me a prompt that I can add to deep research so that it can do the research for me? And it did so beautifully. Like the prompt was like this huge essay that it wrote, but it did the job. So I made it do the job that I was expecting to do manually, and it saved me so much time. And I would have never been able to write the prompt with such depth and so many dimensions covered as a
Yeah.
single human brain.
And if you did, it probably would take you 3 edits and over the course of several days to get it to
Yeah,
a level of satisfaction. But they did it in a
yeah,
matter of no time, right? And things.
yeah,
So I guess what we're trying to do is get people comfortable. Just start. Start by
yeah.
asking questions, and they can be personal. I have different folders. One project's personal research. So this is where I don't want in any of my projects. I just like the hammams that was personal research and stuff. And then there's other things. But yeah, you can get so much done, and it comes from an objective frame of mind. Although caution, it could be my personal objective frame of mind that they have learned what I think is objective, which may
Mhm.
not be. So you need to be cautious about those kinds of things. I hope you're enjoying this episode of Rev Up Your Leadership with Hilda Gann. Are you looking to build stronger teams, enhance communication, or lead with a people first approach? I'd love to invite you to a free 30-minute discovery call to explore how we can help you with strategic HR consulting, leadership training, and team and communication effectiveness training. Visit peoplebrightconsulting.com to book your call. Now let's get back to the episode. Things. We've talked a lot about this, and I'm hoping that people hearing us talk realize that maybe I need to try this. Maybe it's not so bad after all. Maybe it will save me, 10 hours. I'm in the language of Colby, I'm what you call a fact finder. I love to do research, and every time I do a new project, I will do research. And so I budget 4 to 5 hours to do research, and I love getting buried into the weeds. And now I can ask the questions, and in like 10 minutes, I've got the research and I've got statistics. One time I was saying we want to connect with leaders in a certain space, in a not-for-profit sector in North Bay. Who would those contacts be? They
Mhm.
identified who they were, where they were located, what their area of expertise. You know how much Google research I would have needed to do, and they just did that in 5 minutes. I
Yeah.
don't know these people, but then I went into LinkedIn and I connected with, invited myself to see if they would invite and talk about. Never would I have been able to figure that out with period, because I just didn't know what could do that kind of research.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And this is where even in our like when we are doing our day-to-day workflows, um, I've come up with this 3A framework to help us think through how to think about integrating AI into our works. And that framework is very simple. It's like, look at my work. What parts of my work do I feel AI can help augment? Like,
Yep.
like the little things that I do, but AI can help me do better. It could be writing, an email, as simple as that, finding addresses, like you mentioned. It could be creating a PowerPoint deck quickly where the AI is creating images and I'm kind of still dictating what story needs to go in the deck. So those are areas where AI can really truly augment my capabilities and I can help do my work faster, quicker. Then there are also parts of my work which I really don't enjoy. And I wish I could delegate it to somebody and they just do it and it gets done. The repetitive non-value add tasks. Identify those tasks. Work with your technical team to say, hey, in my workflow, these are the areas that I would love to delegate to AI. Let them do the thinking on which AI to use, how to configure the system, but just take off that manual load of repetitive tasks from your equation. And then the third piece is that AI truly gives us the power to rethink our processes, rethink ways of doing work completely from scratch. So the third A is, how do we adapt with AI? If I was doing this job in a sequence of A to Z, do I really need to do it in the sequence of A to Z? Or now with AI in the mix, to achieve that same outcome, what should be the new way of working? We can completely rethink and redesign our ways of working internally in the organization. That's where transformation sits. But the first two ones are easy ones for us to start kind of
Yep, yep.
testing the waters and understanding how to actually bring AI into our day to day lived experiences at work.
I love that framework. I'm going to have to chat with ChatGPT tonight and talk about what should I delegate. And so really, I mean, that's such a powerful thing. What can AI do to augment what I do? Then what can I delegate the things that I don't enjoy? And we tell people, if you're good at, you started as an entrepreneur, you started a business, you're good at these things, you're not good at those things, you need to hire somebody to do the things that you don't like to do or you're not good at, right? So that's that kind of delegate piece. And then I love that word, rethink and adapt. And I think this is where a lot of organizations are in terms of transformation, right? And I know in our conversations, you talk about the fact that this adaptation is one of leaders' biggest challenges. It's not the technology piece itself, it's the change and the adapting of the people to that. What words of advice would you have for us?
I would say transformation is playing the long game. It's not going to happen overnight. But to get started on this journey, we have to really reorient our mindset. We can't be playing with the renovator mindset with this technology and the change that's coming our way. The speed, the scope, the scale, the size of this change is truly unprecedented. And we've been conditioned to apply the renovator mindset in our organizational context. Our incentive systems in our organizational context also supports renovator mindset. And when I say renovator mindset, the constraints of, like the foundation is still the same. You can come and paint the house, you can put new windows, but structurally you're not changing anything, right? That's
Right.
what has been rewarded in organizational context in the past. But with AI in the mix, we need to have an architect mindset. We have to really rethink about, like what's the business, what value are we driving as a business and as mini capabilities that are supporting the larger business. Like if we are looking at it from HR lens, this is the time for us to wear that architect hat and start with what's the value that will move us out of this existential threat that we are in right now
Yes.
as a capability, as a department. And that question mark sits on everybody. Every capability in an organization has a question mark today.
Mm-hmm.
Every business is struggling with that question mark. If I don't adapt and if I don't change, will I exist in the near future?
Yeah.
And for that, we need to have that architect mindset where we have to be brave enough and courageous enough and support that mindset in our teams as well, where people who challenge the status quo, people who bring new ideas are encouraged and not hand slapped. This is the time to re incentivize not the status quo thinking, but challenger thinking in organizations.
I love your analogies. And this one is really cool because you're saying, you know, sometimes you only need a renovator's mindset. Update it, refresh it so it looks like it's in this century, not last century. But now you're talking architecture, and that visualizes a different mindset than just a coat of paint here, or the 2026 colors for this year are the 2026 software this year are. But think about the bones, and when I when I work with clients, I talk about foundation. When you build, when you know your foundation, you build from that. The clients you have are based on that foundational set of beliefs. What do
Mhm.
I do? Who do I serve? The employees you hire are based on those beliefs, that foundation. And then the processes you have are a result of that foundation. If you are a quality driven firm, where you're in finances or you're doing audit type work, you're going to have different kinds of employees, different kinds of clients, and different processes for checks and balances. Whereas if you're in the customer giving business, like a hotel or like a theme park, you're creating customer experiences.
Yeah.
Again, your clients have different focus. Your staff are much more client serving, and your processes are checks and balances. Are we doing a good job or meeting our customers? Are we training our staff? All of these is architecture. And
Mhm.
now we have the opportunity to think, what foundation, what architecture do we have now to be truly transformative? And when I think transformative in a strategic way, I don't think about, oh, what do we do so we can make sure we're alive tomorrow? We have
Yeah.
to think about future. What if we scale? What if, these risks happen? What is the right choices to be made for those bones to build and grow, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
You talk about building trust, transparency more than tools. So share that with us, because any change really requires a strong element of building relationships.
It truly does. And again, like if we string our conversation back to the AI piece that we were talking about earlier, this time around, the change is so undefined that I've seen that. I mean, let me go back to an example. Companies have like spent last 2 years. This year, 26, the vibe seems to be very different. Looks like there have been some realizations this year. So let's see how 2026 plays out. But last 2 years, organizations invested heavily in AI, so much so that every organization would have either gone with one of those big LLM providers and introduced it into the organization. Hey, we implemented Microsoft Copilot. People have been given licenses for last 2 years. We are not seeing an ROI. I mean, but that speaks to the level. There are many factors that could be in play for no adoption of the tool or low adoption of the tool, but I think trust is a big one here, because unless we are very clear as a leadership team and openly tell our employees that here's our stance on AI and this is what our evolving AI strategy looks like for this year, and this is the mission that we are on. You're not going to get buy-in from people even if you give them access to expensive tools like Copilot and say go figure it out. It's not going to happen because there's uncertainty and there's fear associated with this change. And trust, I think, from leadership. So I'm always a champion of grassroots change. But this time around, I'm saying that we need to have a balanced approach of top down and bottoms up approach to
Mhm.
facilitate adoption and adaptation with AI. And the top down is all about building credibility and trust with your workforce. That's a big piece that leadership needs to solve. And they can do this by being hands on and sharing not just their successes, but their failures with their experimentation with AI too. It could be as little as, hey, I used AI to find me XYZ, and without applying my judgment call, I took the same XYZ and I, shared it widely in the group, and it didn't play out the way I was expecting. Even that failed story is a vote of confidence for your employees,
Yeah.
because then employees can see that all layers of organization are juggling with or struggling with the
Mhm.
same
Mhm.
fears, the same mindsets, the same, I would say, early experimentation with the technology, which is very new to all of us.
And I think we've all experienced that kind of stuff. So hopefully there is that creating that mindset that it's okay. We're all learning together, and we'll get stronger and supportive if we keep the lines of communication open, if we acknowledge what we do expect from AI. And I think too often when people are implementing things, they don't remember to include a communication plan.
Mhm.
I remember I was implementing something. It was a software changeover, and I had as one of my to-dos communication plan. What's that going to look like? In the early stages. 2 weeks before we launch, 2 weeks after we launch. All of this. What are all those key elements that people need to know, so
Yeah.
that they're not in the dark and that they're buying into this kind of thing. So
Yeah.
so it harpens back to, you need to make sure that this is understanding change management, resilience, assessing the situation, building the architecture, building the communication for all of this change that is currently facing all of us.
100%. And I'll add to that, Hilda, that also involve people at all levels of the organization in decision making and strategy development upfront. I mean, this time around, I don't, my lived experience has been when we were implementing ERP solutions that all decisions and choices were made. Then the change team was brought in to say, hey, can you facilitate now landing of this change?
Mm,
But those people who have now to be communicated with, trained, and bought into this change were never involved in that decision making process.
yeah,
And if we apply the same tactic this time around, the transition is going to become even more harder,
yeah,
because if
yeah.
we don't see ourselves in that transformation, it's going to be hard to rewire our mindset to
I
become that
know.
architect.
When you were saying that, when chatbot came and similar things, because I don't know, when you go on to a Zoom call now, there's like 10 people on, but there's seven chat uh,
Yeah.
note takers of varying sorts, and one of my friends said, we don't accept those people. They're not those people. Those things are not coming into this because it's just like. But you're right. I don't think we ever. I don't think I don't think many organizations thought about, what do we need to share? What is our strategy with bringing on this new technology? And all of a sudden, I'm a trusting person, so I never thought, oh, people are probably thinking, well, they're keeping an eye on me. They're checking on my meetings and then seeing what I didn't do, if I follow up. No, I'm not getting involved in that, right? Because I think there's an inherent fear that I'm
Mhm.
going to be looked at for everything I do, and more importantly, everything I don't do. And that creates that fear and this kind of um, rift
Yeah.
between employers. I always believe in creating a we culture, and this would be an example of creating a divisive us versus them kind of culture. Before we wrap up, is there anything that you want to share with summarize maybe what leaders need to do differently to ensure that we support AI changes that will help humans feel that they are involved and that this is going to be for the better?
I would double click on what I said earlier, that get people involved early on. Like,
Yeah.
get them involved at the get go, inception of change thinking, versus when decisions and choices have been made. Because this is a very complicated undertaking that all of us are going through. We have to redefine complete ways of working. Business models are going to shift and pivot. Organizations might look very different. The hierarchical structure of organizations might completely disappear. The role of leaders might look and feel very different in the near future than it was for last 70, 80, 100 years or so of industrialized era of ways of working. So the more we have people involved early in co-creation, the better results and outcomes we will get, not only from the perspective of adoption and change, but also in terms of rethinking value creation. if I'm doing a job of X, if I get everybody who's aligned or attached to that job together and we rethink how do we deliver value in a new world, it'll be much more stronger value solution if we come together and rethink it versus one person having to think about redefinition and then everybody has to jump on it.
Yeah.
That thinking is going to be a really difficult one
Yeah.
for
And that should be a
organizations.
thinking of a past or a
Yeah,
long past and things.
that's right. That's right.
So what's coming up for you or your company next?
Yeah, so for Yenza 3, we are doing transformative work for clients. But what we strongly and passionately feel about is rewiring this mindset shift that needs to happen in organizational context. So we've actually created a series of workshops where we go in like a SWAT team and we run these workshops to help people close the imagination gap on what do we mean by renovator versus architect? Why do we need to have that mindset?
Yeah.
What does zero based thinking, design thinking look and feel like in my context of work? And then we help organizations tease out those use cases against the framework that I shared earlier. Where can we use AI to augment, to automate, and to adapt? So that at least a business leader in that capability area has a list of use cases and then they can work with the team to say, is this use case worth pursuing? Should we test here or should we test there? Because what we felt was decision readiness is really tricky with AI in the mix because there's too much uncertainty involved. And that's what we want to solve for.
What an interesting series of sessions, because it really will help an organization be ready to adapt to the changes. I think the series that you have is great, and these are things that organizations can talk to you more about, bringing those series into your thing, because that's the start. That's really the start, is to get comfortable with change. And we haven't always been good about embracing change in organizations, and sometimes it's been okay if it's just a reno, we can all live with it for a bit. But when we're looking at architecture change, that takes a little bit more thoughtfulness and a little bit more coordination, planning, and creating that element of trust. So thank you so much. How do people get a hold of you and Yenza 3?
Yeah, we have a website. It has details of we are Toronto based, but we serve the community broadly, globally. So that's there. And of course, you can find me on LinkedIn. I have Substack and through my Tides podcast. So I'm always eager to connect with people who are pioneers, who are disruptors, or even people who are curious and have questions around AI and what do we do next? Where do we go next? Because it's the world to become a bigger, it's time to become a bigger collective mind. No one person has it figured out yet.
In case people didn't hear, you have a podcast called Tides. So they might not have quite heard that. And I have people who both listen to my podcast and who check us out on YouTube. Can you share how to get a hold of you, Shveta? How do you spell it? So those who are listening are saying, how do I get a hold of her?
Yeah, my name is a little odd. It should be with a W. It's pronounced with a W sound, but spelled with a V. So Shveta, and last name Malhan, Malhan. And you can use my name on LinkedIn and or Substack or YouTube, and you'll find me on all platforms.
Well, thank you very much for joining me today. I think our conversation really should help people think about the changes that need to happen, and to see that stepping in and getting a little more comfortable with AI and helping the organization think about how their architecture may change has been really, really valuable. So thank you so much, Shweta, for coming.
Thank you so much for having me, Hilda. It was a Very enjoyable conversation.
I enjoyed it so much as well, and I found it stimulating. And I'm thinking people will really find this very interesting, because I think we all feel the same way. Some of us are a little bit further in our journeys, and others are still starting out. But I'm encouraging people to get started, get going, and you'll probably be amazed at how quickly you start to feel very comfortable and start to use it more and more in ways that will help you more and more. So thank you again. And thanks to the listeners and the viewers. If you liked this episode, give it a thumbs up. If you haven't already joined, subscribe to Rev Up Your Leadership. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for tuning in to Rev Up Your Leadership with Hilda Gann. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe to our podcast on YouTube and Spotify to stay up to date with our latest episodes. For more leadership and HR tips and strategies, and to learn how you can create a people-centric workplace, visit our website at peoplebrightconsulting.com.